And welcome to another edition of Thoughts of the Roundtable with me, Matt Rebar.
And me, Paul Laux.
And how are you?
I am good. How are you? How's your quarantine continuing?
Well,
or is it even that anymore?
I've been really frustrated lately. My big thing is obviously the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I didn't realize how sad that was going to make me until it actually happened.
I guess I was bummed because obviously, you kind of know things like that are going to happen, but girl seems strong, man. She seemed like she could get through anything.
She beat cancer 5 times?
Seriously. I don't know if it's 5, but I could totally believe that she did it 5 times. She was.
I think it was 5. I'm not even.
She's that kind of warrior. And I was upset at that, but then I was really upset with suddenly, because flashback to 2016 when was it Justice Clemens or
no, Scalia died.
Remember
Scalia died,
and it was 300 days before the election, and God forbid we even think about filling that seat before the election.
Well,
and now here we are 40 days out from election, and everyone's changed their tune, and it's I'm so annoyed. I'm just so done.
I got some thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing it was. I think Scalia died in February, and so then I think it was in March is when Obama nominated Merrick Garland, and there was always a tweet. I always say that. I'll show it to you right here.
Oh man, you have it up.
And on April 3rd, 2016, Donald Trump tweeted, really at the time. He said Obama should wait until he leaves office to pick another justice. If he doesn't, he should be fired. And right here. It's right here.
Oh, my God.
And a lot of people are saying, both sides are being hypocritical. The Democrats hypocritical because they wanted to fill a seat, at the end in the election year, then the Republicans not wanting to, and now it's kind of reversed. But at the same time, there was no precedent set. Now that the precedent has been set, that you kind of don't do that. Now, the GOP's over here with how many, 42 days, 41 days left?
And truth be told, they'll probably get it. And it's the double standard that makes me... The double standard is what makes me absolutely crazy. You know what I mean? But then too, it's it really shows the weakness of having a Supreme Court. When you have a two-party system the weakness of a Supreme Court when you have a two-party system that owns legislative and executive, the judicial, which is supposed to be not biased, becomes bias. Well, and I think it's going to be scary because in my opinion the court's always been more conservative. This is the court that years ago recently said that corporations have the same rights as humans, and this is the court that there's always whispers about large social issues if they're going to go back on what they've ruled, and adding another conservative judge. I mean, we're going to enter, I think, a new, a Reagan-esque era of conservatism when it comes to major judicial rulings. That's my worry.
I don't know personally if it's an issue with the Supreme Court. I mean, I really don't. I think it's more of an issue with the lobbying and just the partisanship in general. I really think that's kind of the the whole seed of this thing. Because really, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having the Supreme Court and who they are and what they are there to do. But when we basically use these things as weapons against each other. And ironically today, it started back in 2016. I don't know how I just stumbled across it. But it's a podcast series by the Washington Post called Presidential. And it's they go through every single president, one episode per president, just talk about them, and everything. And so far I've gotten up to James Madison. And I was listening to this today and kind of reflecting on what, things are like, today. And it was it's so strange to me, and it's kind of upsetting because, even not so long ago, presidents were, presidential, and, politics was politics, but at the same time, we kind of all did things based on the, support of the country and what we do. And I don't know when we turned this corner, if it was the Trump years in 2016 or if it was something early where everything just seems so it just, you against them. And the thing that really worries me about this is just taking steps back in general. I mean, I was reading about RGB, and I mean, I didn't realize some of the things she did, which was how women couldn't get a credit card unless a man signed off on it and stuff like that. And I'm just afraid personally that like, we're going to be taking steps backwards. Like it was only I think it was 2015 when gay marriage was legalized. I think it was 2015. And then shortly after that is when they messed with the Pledge of Allegiance, I believe, in school. And the reference to God wasn't mandatory, I think. Remember that?
I think I remember that, but then there was backlash because, you had some schools with, like, uber patriotic teachers who were, like, punishing kids or something like that. It was very... It wasn't handled
But long story short, I'm just worried about taking steps backwards. I really am. And I think
But I feel like we've all... I think, to be fair, we've already taken steps backwards.
We have. I mean, that's absolutely true.
It kind of reminds me of a South Park episode where they talk about, like, the rock bottom, and... This, to me, feels like we have been rock bottom for a while now. I mean, especially with this whole COVID thing. I mean, 200,000 deaths. And granted,
just over the weekend,
people can massage the numbers in the sense like they could say, okay, well, how many of these people would have passed without COVID? But truth be told, no matter what number that is, there are still people that died because of how we treated and how we handled it.
There's still 200,000 people who are gone.
And to me, I'm the kind of person that's like, okay, if even 10 people died of COVID, is that not the responsibility of us as a society? In the sense that, like, how could we have made that 8 or 6 or 0? So the fact that we have, this large number, even if you want to say, well, only, 100K, which to me, only 100K lives.
That's still a lot.
I don't know. There was even an article too where some people were saying like how the loss has been, quote, acceptable. And I'm like, how is even one life acceptable? Like this could have been curbed really easily. And I don't know. And don't get me started on states' rights, and don't get me started on the Electoral College, and don't get me started on, there's just so many things that feel messed up. And it's like, how do you fix all of that? How do you...
I mean, it's so deep-seated, and I think the thing that bothers me the most is, just today, or I think it was over the weekend, unfortunately enough, it was a rally in Ohio, and Trump said that the virus, in quotes, his actual quote, he said it affects nearly no one. And it's just like, thinking about this, it's just like, when did we become so just, we don't care about anyone. We literally are just so careless about any sort of life or
But there are people who think that this is a hoax, like even, like, I'm not going to say
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started.
But someone called me, and I'll say that it's related to my personal like businesses in the sense of like, like maybe it was God, I don't want to get specific, God forbid. Let's say like the electric company called you, or maybe it was your Wi-Fi company called you, or maybe it was like your insurance called you. It's in that vein. Someone called me. And they were like, I just had this vision, like, by Christmas, it'll all be over, and we'll be mask-free. And I'm just like, what? Like, how do you... And granted, that's not bad. I think what they meant to say was really like, wouldn't it be a Christmas miracle if we could get a vaccine? Which, again, another issue. I don't know if I would trust a vaccine that came out of the government right now. But... there's people that genuinely think this is a hoax, that like election's gonna hit and it's all gonna just go away.
I've had people say that to me to my face. They're like, "Oh, don't worry, this will end November 3rd." Like, how can you honestly be that dense? First of all, this thing, maybe we're our own worst enemy because we refuse to do simple things to prevent this, like masks and all that. We refuse to even take it seriously. I mean, at a certain point, it's like you do this to yourself, and it's just. It honestly bothers me, seriously, deep down, that these people exist who think it's fake and everything, and it's just so like, I legitimately even know people who family members have gotten it and died, and they still don't care. They're like, I know someone, I won't say anything, who their family member passed away from it. They're like, he was whatever, he was old anyway. I'm like, dude, like seriously, God. Like that doesn't bother you at all, and they're like, well, it's not that big of a deal, it's fake. It's so what. And it's honestly dumbfounding. It seriously is. And it makes me just worry about my God, us as a people in general. I mean, how can we be it's gross. It honestly is just gross at times.
And, I think I've said this in this podcast before, so if I have, I apologize. I think a huge issue with American society today is that we are uber individualistic. We do not have...
And nationalistic.
Yeah. And we do not have a sense of community. We do not have a sense of globalism. And these are things that are becoming, I think, more and more apparent as you go through something like COVID, as you go through this political year, right? And it's like people just think about themselves, and hey, I think it's important to think about yourselves. You kind of have to, right? But you should also be thinking about your community. You should be thinking about the community about that you live in and other people. And like, for me, like when I walk by someone who, let's say, like looks rough, like looks homeless, I feel a pang of, empathy. It doesn't mean I'm in a position where I can like drop everything for them, right? It doesn't mean I'm in a position where like, because I hate when people are like, well, if you feel bad about, this, then you should go out there and donate all your money and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, the point is like, at least having the empathy of saying, I don't know anyone who's passed from COVID, but I feel bad. And truth be told, I actually do know someone who passed. It wasn't anyone close to me. It was a family member. So not connected to me by blood or law, and that sucks because it's like, wow, like they were doing fine and it literally was COVID, because they were older and they were doing okay. And,
The sad thing about this and the unfortunate thing about it is I feel like we've gotten to the point where we don't really think about things or act on things. We're very, knee-jerk society. And unless it punches you square in the face, and sometimes even that, we don't really do anything about it. And everything has to be politicized, and everything has to be this, and everything has to be that. And, just years ago, I mean, in the early 90s, I mean, everything just seemed, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you felt a different way. Maybe you see it differently. But I felt like we were much more, cohesive and, brought together. And it's just, I honestly don't understand the division. I don't understand the disbelief in what's going around us because, let's be honest, we could be out of this much more quickly than, what we're in right now. But it's just, we've gotten stuck in this rut where, everyone's out to get you. Everyone's out to, personal fronts and, mask you and muzzle you. And, we can't think down the road and we can't think of the person who lives next to you and how it affects them. Because in a sick way, like with this, especially the things with, a mask, it's not really for you. It's so you don't prevent, things spreading to other people. And truth be told, we just don't care about other people. We just, at the end of the day, we just literally don't care about each other. That's what it is. That's what it boils down to. That's what it's always going to boil down to. And I hate to be so cynical, but that's so prevalent and obvious nowadays.
One thing that you said that made me think was when you said, I feel like, we were closer in the 90s, early 2000s. And I'm thinking about that, and I don't know if that's necessarily... Well, maybe that's true, but I think of like, well, these days I think we're holding people accountable. We're saying we're saying Black Lives Matter. We're saying that cops shouldn't be as aggressive. We're saying, rapists shouldn't rape. And I think,
but you didn't even push back on that.
But back in the 90s, were we really, as I don't know, like in the 90s, if you went to your workplace and said a gay slur or a racist slur, I mean, were you going to be fired? Were you going to be heavily reprimanded? Maybe
I get
not.
What you're saying.
These days, people go on Twitter and they drop the N-word, the F-word, and people go after their jobs. And listen, I am all about the whole idea of like you're dropping those words or you're sexually harassing your employees. Absolutely, that's cause for termination.
Right.
But that's a complete drastic turnaround from decades ago when that would have been fine in the workplace. Like sexual harassment would have been okay. Like, oh, get used to it, Sally. Like this is what it is working with the boys. And I think that is why there was more of a sense of unity, was because you didn't really hear any of these voices that had problems. And now there's a lot of problems that are being addressed that stem from decades, obviously. And I think that's part of the reason why people feel divisive. And the shame is that we as a society should say, hey, you're right. We shouldn't use these terms of prejudice. We should not, encourage sexual assault. And we should deter it. But there are plenty of people, especially, white straight men, who are like, this is no, like I want to say what I want to say. I want to, excuse me, sparkling water. I want to do what I want to do.
I wonder if, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I wonder if part of that is due to, obviously, the information age we're in now, Twitter, and you can blow up on that, and Instagram, you can blow up on that. I'm curious as if to, if these things existed back then. in the 90s, early 2000s, if we would have been the same reactionary way we are now, which if someone says something, then, you get canceled, or if this is something new, if it really is a new kind of thought and belief. I mean, let's be honest, protests and movements have been around since the day of, since the beginning. So that's nothing new. But, I mean, is this kind of a new, do you think it's kind of a new idea we have in our heads and kind of a push towards finally holding people accountable? Or is this just because of the way the world is now, the ease of everything, that we've gotten to that point? And,
See, I think we all think that we live in a cancel culture, but think about all these people who, like the Ryans, for example, and the beauty bloggers. Like every day, there's a beauty blogger that said something racist, and they're not canceled. They're still out there. They still have people who listen, who buy their stuff, and
a lot of people come back.
I think rarely, if ever, does someone actually get canceled. I think they really have to do something I'm trying to think of who, I think pedophile Jared from Subway was effectively canceled.
Yeah,
he's a pedophile.
I'm pretty sure he's still in prison too.
Oh yeah, but I can't think of anyone who has said the N word, the F word, and was fully affected by it. Can you?
It's hard. I have to really rack my brain, but I can't think of anybody off the top of my head besides that who's effectively just gone away forever. I mean, totally. There's been people who've gone away for a long time. Kevin Spacey is obviously going to be gone for a long time, but he will resurface.
That's interesting.
He will resurface.
That is interesting that you said that, because that's actually a really good example of someone who was kind of effectively canceled. But you're right. I mean,
he's even now starting to crawl back. You're starting to see, things of that appear again.
What's his name? Louis J.K. Louis C.K.
Louis C.K. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, he's
doing shows again.
Doing shows, exactly. It really goes to show you that at a certain point you just really can't get canceled. Now, let's say that small time employee who goes on Twitter and drops the N word, the F word, or can their life be easily canceled? Yeah. You have 1,000 people on Twitter calling your boss saying that you said this. You get fired from that job. That's an effective way of canceling.
It's an all about status thing. If you have enough money and power to get to where you want to be, you can come back from anything.
I agree. So at the same time, I think it's easier if you're you and me, we can get canceled. But in terms of a large celebrity, it's funny. I even saw on Twitter people were talking about Mark Wahlberg again, because I don't know why they were bringing him up. But people were like, oh, here's a whole laundry list of things that he did in the 80s and 90s. And it's and he's still around, right? He's still a big name. So it's crazy.
I'm trying to think of anybody who was canceled effectively in the 90s or 2000s. And I can't honestly think of anyone of any. But obviously I was younger, so I don't totally know the outrage back then. But, things were different back then too. And we've always had these issues. And, with racism and injustice and things like that. And I think it's just now we're starting to really, take them by the horns. So maybe that's why we're seeing so much more, cancellations. But I always get interested by and intrigued by the people who are upset with cancel culture. I really do. Because it's are you upset that this just makes you uncomfortable, that these people are like this and we don't want them to be around anymore? Is that, or do you legitimately just support what they were saying? I always think about for instance, I don't know, someone said something, dropped something that they shouldn't have on Twitter, and people, go push back for it. It's well, are you upset that people got upset and kind of pushed them away? Or maybe I'm not explaining this correctly. Or are you just upset that you can't use that terminology anymore? Is that what you're really upset about? What is bothering you?
I think it depends. I think one thing that I think about is, with social media, it is so quick and easy to have a mob mentality, and someone does something that's inappropriate, that's wrong. Let's say they I don't know. I'm trying to think of a light example, but I mean, the examples that come to mind really are dropping the N word, dropping the F word, misogyny, you're filming, inappropriate things that oh, here's my colleague's nudes that leaked, or, and I don't know, do they deserve everything that they get? I don't know. I kind of lean towards yes more than no, because
I mean, obviously the situation, depends on the result. Yeah. But
I think you just think that you'd be smart enough to not post that. But
what do you feel about the people who dig up things from like years and years and years ago? What are your thoughts?
It's all public.
Like the
record,
whole Kevin
man.
Hart deal.
It's all public record. Like I mean, even earlier in this podcast, you used Trump's words against him.
That is true,
because it's public record, and to me, that's totally fine. And I think this is why there needs to be more education about social media to everybody. Like, we all need more education, because I think some people don't understand like the permanent status that these posts can have. And like, I see people on my timeline. Listen, Paul, my Twitter is pretty tame. I wish I could tweet half the things that I think about. I get some really good ideas for tweets, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't tweet that because work would complain. I have people who follow me who would be like, what? And like,
you gotta have a filter of sorts.
I'm just not in a position where like I can have a public profile and tweet certain things. But there are some people on my timeline, I'm like, oh my gosh, like if your boss found out about this Twitter account, like, would you be okay? Or like, if you're, if like maybe your landlord saw that Twitter account, like, would they want to re-sign your lease? It makes me a little like, ooh. Like, I worry about some people in my life because I'm like, oh, I see your Twitter account, man. And
that's either a person not thinking or not caring. And I honestly don't know which is worse. I
think it's either or both. And to me, though, it's like, oh my gosh, how do you not care? Like, is this tweet worth it to you? I don't know. I don't think a tweet's worth me getting fired or me getting attacked online. Not that
some people do that on purpose, though, and kind of want to get attacked because they want to make a point. I mean, there are those people too.
Yeah, not me. I think you can make a point without having to be, attackable for it. But
agreed.
I don't know. Maybe this has been a very interesting episode. Last week was all about the population density of Hawaii, and now
I forgot about that.
I know, this podcast, you never know what you're gonna get.
Very enlightening. Very enlightening. We never get what do we want to anyway.
I know. I had a really good juicy article, but I will save it for next time. So
I will save mine too.
Ooh. Okay. Well, have a good rest of your. I'm like, you can tell I'm shutting down now. I'm like, my whole brain was like, cannot compute. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.
Later.